regardless of how you look at them from the opponent's side.
Yes, so this is going to be such a close matchup, and these two players are going to have to play to their absolute best to make sure that they can advance to the finals of the Stuttgart Regionals.
Well, here we go. Top 4 is in action. It's going to be Hydreigon paired up with the Golden Go out on the field against the Archaludon and the Incineroar. Now, the Incineroar's Intimidate going to be null and void against 2 special attackers.
Yes, Incineroar's Intimidate not going to do anything to either of these Pokemon, but Incineroar just heavily threatens Golden Go. Golden Go is not going to enjoy taking any Dark or Fire-type moves, but it is a very good Pokemon against this Archaludon. Now, you do have that Hydreigon on the other side that will be taking super effective damage from this Archaludon. It does have Snarl, so it can try and reduce the damage output of the Archaludon, but then it gives it a stamina boost, so I think Francesco has a bit of an advantage in this lead matchup. Incineroar free to go for a Fake Out. Hydreigon does have Terra Ghost, but it's probably not something you want to go for this early during the turn.
Yes, also if you go for the Terra Ghost, you leave yourself susceptible to that Incineroar that's got knockoff. It's not running any Fire-type moves, so I guess the Golden Go doesn't have to worry about it from that perspective, but the Dark-type moves, like the knockoff, that's going to hurt down into the Golden Go. And if Hydreigon wants to turn into a Ghost-type, then that would affect it too. Instead, we're going to see some shake-ups on the field as the Incineroar joins on THEOTIME's side.
Yes, a fantastic protect from Golden Go there, just making sure that there's no really strong cap, but the Dragon Pulse coming off onto this Archaludon, easily absorbed by this Incineroar, and Incineroar on Francesco's side, knockoff is not going to be effective into that protecting Golden Go.
That Dragon Pulse would have done a huge amount of damage to the Hydreigon, so a really nice adaptation there by THEOTIME bringing in the Incineroar, and now you also have the Fake Out pressure for this turn.
Yes, the Fake Out pressure on THEOTIME's side, it can easily just go into this Incineroar by its teammate Golden Go, a turn to set up the nasty plot.
Ooh.
But of course, there is that Terra Ghost option on Francesco's side, so THEOTIME has to be very careful if a Terra Ghost comes out, but it looks like Francesco is just going to recall the Incineroar, wants to save it to come back later for a Fake Out.
Yes, I quite like this as well. You can have that Fake Out potential going forward, and it enables Pelipper to join the field, set that rain up, and allow Archaludon the moment to shine if it does want to go for another one of those Electro Shots, but not today. First of all, it's going to be slowed down with the Fake Out, but critically, this still gives it that stamina boost, so it's going to have a little bit more defensive flexibility and a boosted body press going into the next turn. But there it is, the nasty plot you called out, Zoe.
Yes, the Golden Go is now up and ready to go after having plotted away some very ingenious schemes. Archaludon now on the field with that +1 can do very heavy damage to this Incineroar that's already been chipped from an earlier Dragon Pulse, and also it's now very free to start spamming those Electro Shots. There is no weather control on THEOTIME's side, so there's nothing stopping this Archaludon going for the Electro Shot. Now, Electro Shot will not knock out the Golden Go, but with a double up from the Pelipper, it might be enough. So this Golden Go needs to be very, very careful now that it's on the field and rain has been set up.
And the Incineroar too as well. Incineroar doesn't want to take a potential Weather Ball that would turn into a Water-type move either. So a nice adaptation by THEOTIME, being able to bring the Amoonguss into play, a Pokemon that's perfectly able to take Electro-type attacks or to take Water-type attacks, as the Golden Go just does a defensive moment here. We are going to see the Electro Shot being charged up. This is still going to give the special attack boost, but whether or not it's going to find its target or not is yet to be determined.
Yes, now Archaludon's Electro Shot does go into the protecting Golden Go, but it gets to keep that +1, and Pelipper going for that Tailwind, so increasing the speed on its side. So now both this Archaludon and the Pelipper will be outspeeding this Golden Go, but with the Amoonguss on the field now, it can just go for the Rage Powder. Golden Go can this. Amoonguss, it can redirect both attacks, but the Pelipper does have Hurricane,
yes,
and that will be super effective onto this Amoonguss if the Amoonguss chooses to try and keep that Golden Go safe. And the Golden Go probably would not want to go for a Make It Rain this turn and risk giving that Archaludon another boost, but you really need to control this Archaludon, and here we go, that Rage Powder onto this Amoonguss, redirecting all attacks.
This is the perfect support to enable that Golden Go a moment in the spotlight. The Electro Shot is going to charge up once again, get another special attack boost, but we know that the bulk of this Amoonguss is unprecedented, and it's an Electric-type move, so it should be able to take this reasonably well. But of course, the Archaludon once again is now in a prime position where it just keeps getting special attack boost set up. The Hurricane, on the other hand, that's going to connect and get the KO. Not only is it super effective, it's 100% accurate in range, and the special attack stat of Pelipper is sky high. So it's going to be able to get the knockout. And here comes Golden Go with the Shadow Ball. So this is going to do a decent amount of damage, a huge amount actually, considering that our Chaladon is also rocking an Assault Vest, just showing the damage that Nasty Plot can deal.
Yes, Chaladon surviving it so well. And Tailwind, there is still 2 turns set up. Our Chaladon is now at +2, but there is no better Pokemon for TheOTIME to switch in than the Incineroar, which has the Fake Out and can buy its teammate 1 turn to flinch the Pokemon. But Incineroar can only flinch 1 Pokemon at a time. And this Chaladon, now that it's at +3, if it uses another Electro Shot, it will be firing off a +3 Electro Shot in the rain. And looks like the Golden Go and the Incineroar will both go down to it. So Incineroar is almost forced to fake out the Chaladon there, but that also means the Pelipper gets the Weather Ball.
It's a really difficult choice, right, for this Incineroar, because you also want to break that Focus Sash on the Pelipper to get that little bit of chip damage into it. But as you've said, whichever Pokemon you don't target down is free to get a huge amount of damage off. Pelipper, for example, can go for that Weather Ball and try and remove the Incineroar from play, so Fake Out is no more going to be a problem for Francesco to deal with. Instead, however, let's shake it up a little bit. The Disco Lights are hitting the stage, and we're going to see a beautiful Terra Water Golden Go. So just putting itself into a position to have a little bit more of a defensive capability in this match.
Golden Go wanting to join in on the rain. It is the Fake Out onto this Chaladon, stopping it from using any moves for this turn. And that means that the Pelipper is going to be free to go for the Weather Ball onto this Golden Go. And Golden Go, being now a part of Water type, will take that very nicely. And at +2 is easily enough to knock out this Chaladon and bring the Pelipper down to its Focus Sash.
I really like this defensive Terra. You might think it's a bit risky in the face of the Electro Shot potential from the Chaladon, but you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's rolled back into its Pokeball, and a fantastic play, not only getting the knockout, but bringing that Pelipper right down to its Focus Sash. So it is going to be so vulnerable going forward.
And now there is one final turn of Tailwind. The Golden Go on Francesco's side is not going to enjoy facing up against this Incineroar, but there is the Terra option still available to Francesco. And at this stage of the game, with the Chaladon down, that is something that perhaps Francesco might want to think about. Looks like the Pelipper is going to be withdrawn, maybe wanting to save the rain setup for another turn.
Yes, interestingly enough, with the rain, it's only going to really benefit, I think, the Pelipper at this point, and also provide some coverage for the Golden Go, so it doesn't have to take a potential Flare Blitz from the Incineroar. On TheOTIME's team, it's going to have its kind of stats reduced a little bit, but we are going to see some adaptations, and I'm sure you can hear the roar of the crowd from Pokemon Go right now, cheering on this Hydreigon as well, as it joins the field.
Yes, Terastallization coming off on Francesco's side. It will also be this Golden Go terastallizing into the Water type. So Golden Go wanting to have a little bit of a splash in the pool and make sure it resists any Dark type moves. But TheOTIME now going for that Protect to stall out this final turn of Tailwind. But Francesco doesn't fall for it and goes for a Nasty Plot.
Really like to see this, capitalizing on the fact that Nasty Plot can do so much damage as demonstrated by the opposing Golden Go. So now Francesco's want to get in on the action. I want to know what this Hydreigon's going to do though, Zoe. Golden Go, now that it's also a Water type, means it's not going to be susceptible to a super effective move from a Snarl, but the Snarl could still at least reduce that special attack.
Could. It'll reduce this Golden Go down to -1. But even at -1, that is still a really strong attack. This is a Life Orb Golden Go on Francesco's side, not a Metal Coat. So it will be doing a lot of damage to both if he uses both the Ghost type and the Steel type attacks. Hydreigon is a fairly bulky Pokemon, and being the fastest on the field, I wouldn't be surprised if it will just, try and mitigate some damage off on Francesco's side.
Well, adaptations once again coming through on TheOTIME's side. Going to be making an adaptation to bring the Incineroar in, and I like this for the capability. It applies the Intimidate to the opposing Incineroar, but also allows you the Fake Out on either Pokemon in the next turn. There is no Ghost typing on that Golden Go anymore, so it can be hit with the Fake Out move, and instead Hydreigon just going to go for a little bit of a defensive option as well. Incineroar going to be targeting down into that slot to no avail. So this is a really nice board adjustment and defensive strategy coming through from TheOTIME.
Yes, and now Golden Go going for the Shadow Ball onto the opposing Golden Go, which is now an Incineroar, and does a fairly reasonable amount of damage, but it does activate the Citrus Berry on TheOTIME's side. Citrus Berry, a little bit of a deviation to a very common safety goggles, and here it is coming into play so nicely. But the board positioning is so even here. Now that THEOTIME has the fake out option and the Golden Go is Terra Water, it can be flinched this turn and allow the Hydreigon on THEOTIME's side to do some damage down. And Incineroar really doesn't have a great time against the Dark and Dragon type Hydreigon on THEOTIME's side.
That's true. You have to ask the question, how do you get around the Hydreigon here? I think the Golden Go going for the Nasty Plot, just allowing Make It Rain to be devastating, can be enough to get the momentum. But you're right, Zoe, there aren't a lot of super effective attacks here in play. The Incineroar, for example, just running knockoff as its kind of only offensive move there isn't going to be anything that Hydreigon's going to worry about at all. The Fake Out does come through and connect with the Golden Go that is obviously not able to attack this turn.
There is one thing the Hydreigon does have to be careful. It looks like Incineroar now first going for that parting shot, you know, throwing some insults there at that Hydreigon and lowering its special attack. So this Hydreigon will be doing a lot less damage. And this Hydreigon only has Draco Meteor and Snarl as its attack. So it has to be very careful about when to drop that Draco Meteor, because then you'll be stuck at -2 and you'll have to switch out to try and reset that. Now, Pelipper switching in, this Pelipper does not have Wide Guard, so it can't actually prevent the Snarl. And, you know, maybe Hydreigon in quite a nice position to go for the Snarl, knock out that Hydreigon, knock out the Pelipper, and then perhaps coming back later on to then reset its special attack.
But also, I agree with you, the Snarl would be great to try and get the knockout on Pelipper, as well as lower the special attack of that Golden Go, for example, so you can start neutralizing that threat potential that Francesco has. One thing that's very interesting about this match, in contrast to some of our previous ones, is the slow pace of play. Both these trainers taking every opportune second to make sure that they're adjusting their ball position accordingly, and at some point, a Pokemon will snap and change that momentum.
This is one of my favorite kind of play styles, just seeing players play so defensively, and look at that. Pelipper switching out, not wanting to take any attacks, and the Incineroar coming back in to absorb any attacks coming from THEOTIME's side, because there's really not that much offensive pressure coming up from either side right now. Golden Go is quite nicely set up, but it's really going to watch out for those Snarls, and that's exactly what the Golden Go does, protecting itself from any attacks this turn.
Yes, and that Snarl comes through, and Incineroar not going to worry about that at all. Not only does it enable the Pelipper to be able to be nice and cozy in the back, but Incineroar as a physical attacker doesn't mind getting its special attack dropped either.
Yes, so this Incineroar on THEOTIME's side, as we saw earlier, the Fake Out went into the Golden Go, did not work, but now this Golden Go is still free to go for an attack, and if it gets hit with the Snarl, I would expect both the Hydreigon and possibly the Incineroar at +1. It looks like it should have enough gas in the tank to survive. But Francesco did wisely switch in his own Incineroar this turn, and THEOTIME's Incineroar cannot protect. So
yes, that's
something to really watch out for. And THEOTIME has used up his Terra option, so you cannot Terra Ghost out of that Fake Out. And there it is again, the defensive play, recalling the Incineroar for that Golden Go in the back.
I'm really not surprised to see both trainers switching these Incineroars in and out. The pressure of this Fake Out is really critical to enabling the slow state of play and enabling these Golden Goes to go for the Make It Rain. That's a knockout on the Hydreigon. Finally, the heat has been turned up here, even though it's raining on the field. But critically, thanks to the Fake Out pressure, Golden Goes in a prime position to start getting set up with Nasty Plots or to deal damage, just like it did.
Yes, and now that THEOTIME has been knocked down to his final 2 Pokemon, he does have the Fake Out support for this turn, but Francesco still has that 1 HP Pelipper in the back, so there's really nothing stopping him from going for, say, a Protect on the Golden Go, switching in the Pelipper, and then the next turn, once the Pelipper has been knocked out, the Incineroar is free to come back in and go for the Fake Out, and THEOTIME's Golden Go is so heavily chipped that any attack will knock it out. Now, I wouldn't expect it to be trained quite fast, so it might be able to get an attack off, and it's not Life Orb, so it won't be taking the recoil, so it's going to be really key. Does THEOTIME ignore the Incineroar slot then and allow that? But, oh, it looks like a forfeit.
Yeah, a forfeit comes through. Francesco is going to be able to take game 1 there. Looks like THEOTIME, I think, maybe figured out exactly the same strategy you just played out in your mind there about the Pelipper coming in, going down, and then Incineroar's back in to apply that Fake Out pressure once again. And that would just be so difficult for THEOTIME to work around because he doesn't have the capability to switch out his Pokemon anymore, as he would have been down to his last 2 remaining.
Yes, Incineroar's greatest strength is the ability to pivot in and out, spread those Intimidates, spread those parting shots, disrupt the opponent with the fake out. But if you are the last two Pokemon left on the field, you cannot switch out. And that is something that I think THEOTIME may be recognizing, that he has all the information that he has obtained in that game 1, and he's ready and fresh to get going with the game 2.
I would really like to see Amoonguss come through a little bit stronger here on THEOTIME's side. Do you think it has the potential to get further in this match, Zoe?
I think Amoonguss is a really key Pokemon because there's that Basculegion, and that's a Pokemon that deals so much damage. But I can also see that with the Pelipper, the super effective Hurricane damage, and Terra Fairy Amoonguss does not have a great time against the Golden Ghost. So it's really difficult for this Amoonguss to be pivoting into a strong position, even though it is very strong. So it's really close. Like, each player has to pick the perfect 4 Pokemon in game 2.
And I think these leads are going to be critical as well. We saw how important Incineroar was to both of these trainers, making sure that even though they weren't dealing a huge amount of damage, it was really for that fake out pressure on the field. The Intimidates weren't even really effective other than to intimidate the opposing Incineroar, for example. But the fact that you could try and keep them on the field and keep them in check just meant that the pace of play was slowed down for these Golden Ghosts. Whether it was the fact that you were trying to slow down your opponents, particularly once they became Terra Water and could be hit with fake out, or whether you were enabling a slower pace of play so that your partner could set up the nasty plot.
Yes, and it looks like our players have decided what their leads are going to be. So we are going to jump very, very shortly into the game 2 of the semi-finals. We're going to have an Incineroar lead up against Hydreigon versus Incineroar and Archaludon.
Yeah, not double dragon, but double dark type out on the field for THEOTIME with the Incineroar and the Hydreigon facing down once again against the Incineroar and the Archaludon, this time on Francesco's side.
So 2 dragons up against each other. The Hydreigon on THEOTIME's side is very heavily threatened by this Archaludon. If it goes for the Snarl, it's boosting up the body press damage, and I see why in that game 1 the Hydreigon switched out immediately. But THEOTIME does have that Incineroar with the access to fake out, and I wonder if he might want to try and go for a knockoff onto this Archaludon, get rid of that Assault Vest, and then his special attackers like the Golden Go, like the Hydreigon, will have a much easier time hitting the Archaludon on its special side, and they won't even care about those defense boosts from stamina because it's not hitting that defense stat.
And we've seen previously as well, one of the Pokemon switch on THEOTIME's side and bring that Amoonguss in. If that's something Incineroar wants to try and catch, that could be a great opportunity, but instead it's going to be the Golden Ghost switching in here. So even if something like a Taunt was going that way, good as gold is going to stop that from being a problem. The Snarl comes through, gets a little bit of chip on the Incineroar, but looks like it missed the Archaludon.
Oh, that's a very, very unfortunate miss because the Dragon Pulse is going to come out and deal absolutely heavy damage, and the knock onto this Golden Go. What a prediction! The critical hit, knocking out this Golden Go in 1 hit.
Golden Go is out of here. Oh my goodness, the Incineroar roars supremely, knowing it found its perfect mark. The fake out was so tempting, Zoe, but Francesco had the call of this match.
Oh my goodness, Francesco adapting so well, getting that read correct, and now THEOTIME is really on the back foot here. He has lost one of his strongest special attackers, and there's this Archaludon on the field that is just going to be so strong now up against this Incineroar. It's not going to care about this Intimidate, and if the Incineroar tries to go for a fake out, well, guess what? Its body press damage is just going to be boosted, and just looking at this team now, THEOTIME really probably has to try and get rid of this Archaludon with either maybe a Snarl, trying to knock off the Assault Vest. I would even say go for that 1 stamina boost, just get rid of that Assault Vest, so to allow your Pokemon in the back.
You also have the utility with the Flare Blitz, I guess, on the Incineroar, but that's not going to be dealing huge amounts of damage, but at least you're trying to hit it on the physical side before the stamina boosts start rolling up. But as soon as those are in play, the physical attackers are null and void to dealing with the Archaludon. So you're right, maybe getting rid of the Assault Vest and kind of carving out a way to get the knockout through your special attackers like the Hydreigon, for example, could be the way to go. But your Hydreigon has to watch out as well. Those Dragon Pulses coming through from Archaludon are going to hurt.
Yes, it looks like the fake out coming off onto this Archaludon, so giving it that stamina boost, but also buying THEOTIME a turn to go for a Snarl, which lands this time and drops the Archaludon's special attack.
Yes, of course, this is going to be really detrimental, though, once again, to the stamina boost. So I feel like THEOTIME is going, my physical attackers have not got this. We're going to focus down on the other Pokemon. Special attackers is up to you. Of course, the knockoff coming through isn't going to do too much damage, but at least it means there is no Citrus Berry to contend with now on the opposing side.
Yes, this Incineroar on THEOTIME, so still fairly bulky in a really nice position, but Chaladon is now at +2, and those body presses are really going to hurt. Now, THEOTIME has not used up any terrestrialization, and the Incineroar and the Hydreigon are both Terra Ghosts. Hydreigon in that range probably will not want to go for terrestrialization, but it's also so heavily chipped that any attack, almost any attack, will knock it out, and it just leads us to question, what's in the back? Because I don't think there'll be an Ursaluna, because THEOTIME has just given that Chaladon so many defense boosts, so he must know that his back Pokemon has to take care of it.
You almost wish it was a Blood Moon Ursaluna, hypothetically speaking, to be able to deal with it. But if it is something like the Porygon 2, unless there's going to be some Ice Beam tricks being played with, it's going to be very hard to get through our Chaladon. Incineroar's going to try its best, though. It's going to go for the Terra Ghost here, just to try and avoid taking any body presses that could be coming its way. It's not going to be affected now. It is a Ghost. But our Chaladon just sticking with the Dragon Pulse, trying to get rid of the Hydreigon first and foremost.
Yeah, no need to try and guess the Terra, but the Taunts coming off onto THEOTIME's Incineroar, preventing any parting shots, and it looks like Incineroar not falling for it, going for the knockoff. So there is no more Assault Vest, giving the Chaladon a +3 now to boost to special defense, but also means this Hydreigon, it's a neutral, so that Draco Meteor might be enough to pick up the knockout onto this Chaladon now. And that means once the Chaladon is gone, that's one really defensive wall that's being removed on Francesco's side.
That's a very good point. Our Chaladon could be in a vulnerable spot now that Assault Vest has gone. Incineroar doesn't really have the capability to deal with it, and again, Incineroar's protected itself from the body press, so I feel like for the Chaladon, you're going to want to keep Dragon Pulsing into the opposing Hydreigon. The speeds could be interesting, though. As you've said, if that Draco Meteor is able to connect, and it does! It lands down onto the Chaladon, but it does not get the knockout!
It is not enough to knock out. Our Chaladon hangs on even without the Assault Vest, and allows the answering Dragon Pulse to knock out this Hydreigon. And THEOTIME now, really with his back against the wall, forced down to his final 2 Pokemon. Francesco hasn't even revealed his back 2 Pokemon yet.
Yes, it looked like the Incineroar was trying to go for the taunt there. In retaliation, it's going to be the knockoff from one Incineroar into the other. But the Rocky Helmet damage going to chip away at this Ghost Incineroar. And honestly, Zoe, our Chaladon and Incineroar is there nothing this duo cannot do in this match. They've been able to get a knockout apiece, and now there is a Ghost-type Incineroar that's not going to appreciate any knockoffs from the other Incineroar, and now a Amoonguss. Amoonguss, however, in a position where the Chaladon in such low HP. Is there something that Amoonguss can do to redirect it, to support? But then how do we get the knockout on a Chaladon?
Yeah, it's looking really difficult there. The Incineroar really doesn't have much against this opposing Incineroar, and Amoonguss only has Pollen Puff as its only damaging move, and so it is effectively a 4v1 against this Incineroar. Sure, the Amoonguss can go for the Rage Powder, but Amoonguss actually going for the Protector's Turn. But oh, so difficult now.
Yeah, I've seen Amoonguss do a many great thing, but I'm not sure it's going to be able to go through this whole team if Incineroar gets felled. Of course, Amoonguss just plays defensively here. The Incineroar on the opposing side looks like it was trying to taunt it down into that slot, but to no avail thanks to the defensive play. But critically, the Incineroar on THEOTIME's side is able to go for the Flare Blitz. It will get the knockout, but it will take that teeny tiny little bit of recoil. And I believe the Citrus Berry had already been knocked off, so there will be no chance of recovery now.
Yes, so the Chaladon is finally down, but Francesco is now free to bring in his back 2 Pokemon, and it's a Pelipper and a Basculegion, and THEOTIME has already used up his Terra option, so this Pelipper is very free to go for a super effective Hurricane onto this Amoonguss, and even if it doesn't, Francesco can just focus down on this Incineroar, and honestly at this stage it looks like Francesco could just take his pick of a target and coast his way to victory.
I feel like this was definitely the Pokemon THEOTIME did not want to see coming through from the back. That Pelipper, as you mentioned, can hit those Hurricanes, can hit those Weather Balls even into the opposing Incineroar, which is exactly what it's doing here. Not going to be able to get the knockout because it has dropped its fire typing, but Incineroar can at least find its mark down onto that opposing Amoonguss, taunting it, meaning it cannot use Spore, Rage Powder, or Protect. It can only go for that Pollen Puff. The focus slash being broken on the Pelipper is nice, but I don't know if a Pollen Puff follow-up could even be enough to get the knockout on it. Instead, it's going to find its mark down onto the Incineroar and help it out a little bit.
Well, Among Us is going to try very, very hard to keep that last remaining damage dealer on TO Team's side alive, but this Incineroar has so much work cut out. Pelipper now very free to just keep spamming these weather balls, and we can see a knockoff possibly coming off onto this Incineroar.
Yes.
Knocking it out, and now Among Us stuck with only Pollen Puff as the only viable move, and this poor little mushroom is not going to be able to clutch out the win.
Yeah, it can go for all the Pollen Puffs in the world, but it looks like Francesco is going to be able to close this up. Very simply, a Hurricane followed up by a knockoff is going to be able to get the match. TO Team, I mean, he's played so incredibly well in this tournament, but locks in the forfeit, meaning Francesco PERRO is going to be your first finalist here in Stuttgart.
Well done, Francesco, for playing that so expertly, taking it to a 2-0 once again. He has won all of his games in the top 8 brackets so far, undefeated, and that is just